Hello folks, welcome back. Critical Rocket here. We're looking at Company of Heroes 2, and the Western Front Armies came out probably about 2 weeks ago now. I'm looking at the US forces to begin with, and we've got about half an hour's worth of footage here for you to show them off. This is a comp stomp map to be taken on expert AIs with some expert friendlies. I outnumber them by 1 because I tried to record this equal teams and I got stomped. And I thought, I don't think it'd be very good if you wanted to watch a video of showing off a new army and me getting my ass handed to me, so here we go. Yeah, lot of changes. Just on the front end first. Relic have made several changes in regards to how the user interface works, how the GUI works, and how certain things like bulletins and skins and even commanders work. They seem to have gone for a kind of almost Facebook style reward system. Basically, you play a match. It could be any type of match, being against the AI. It can be against. It can be with friendlies against the AI, or it can be competitively. But you have a random chance of getting a loot box, and these loot boxes are now how you unlock commanders. Western Front Armies brings 6 commanders for each force. That includes the Soviets and the Wehrmacht, but you are basically hoping that you're going to get this. Some people enjoy this system. I kind of like it in the sense that it gives you a reason to keep playing. I don't play this competitively, so for me this is a great thing, but I can imagine and understand competitive players being a little narked about the idea of having to basically hope that after every match they'll actually get something they want, because sometimes you can get shit stuff. You can get bulletins, which I'm not sure how many people are using these things. They've added in a couple of things. They've added victory strikes, which are basically a way of rubbing it in on the loser, because like the initial one they give you is a 105mm barrage, and it shows a load of shells raining down on their base after they've been beaten. There's a whole bunch of things they've added in. There's no doubt they'll probably add more as we go on. Skins. This includes skins for the vehicles as well. Basically everything. Faceplates, the lot. None of it is now tied to your rank. If you do have a rank before the update, you get a legacy system where they will give you a bunch of stuff tied to whatever rank you were at the time of the update. But that's how they're working this now. You'll love it or hate it. It's a Marmite update, basically. You'll either love it or you'll hate it. But as far as the core expansion goes, just to give you a heads up, it's really good. It's very well made. They've taken the US Army from the original game and really freshened them up. They've given them a whole new play style. Their base is now pre-built, but you have to unlock the base. I guess it's a bit like the Wehrmacht's battle phases. In this case, you have to recruit different officers that will grant more abilities to your side. So initially you start off with a single building, which will only give you access to rear echelon troops, which are basically the US forces version of engineers. They're very weak, armed with M1 carbines, but they're useful because they can build defensive structures that don't take up pop cap, and they can be armed with heavy machine guns, and if you put rear echelon troops inside a fighting pit, they actually equip rifle grenades, which can make them quite useful against massed infantry units. And they don't get suppressed, obviously, but they are very fragile. They're not obviously meant for mass charges. Riflemen are another unit. Riflemen are your bog standard unit, who are basically, they're going to be your dog's body, depending on what doctrine you pick, I guess. And the third unit is the ambulance, and the ambulance is like having a half-track basically at the start of the game. It doesn't have any offensive capabilities, obviously being an ambulance, but it can reinforce units. So you stick it behind a building, you can just keep reinforcing troops right through the fight. And it also has an area of effect heal that will last about 30 seconds for a pretty cheap 30 munitions at a pop. The other cool thing is, and this goes for all US vehicles, if you tell the crew to abandon the vehicle, the crew will then act as an infantry unit. Most of them are equipped with M3 grease guns. Medics, though, will be equipped with pistols. but medics can be told to heal any unit, any friendly unit on the field. Like that BAR there. Awesome gun. Yeah, anyway, got sidetracked there. But basically vehicle crews of tanks, they can be told to jump out and they can then repair their vehicle. So you can do field repairs without actually having to spend resources. Obviously the only downside is that the vehicle is effectively out of action until you tell your crew to get back in or it gets nicked. I imagine competitively that it's a great opportunity to sort of attack the crew when the player might not be watching, and then they can jump in and they can nab themselves like a Sherman or something. Free tank. Luckily the AI doesn't steal your vehicle, so you can steal the AI's vehicles if you're quick enough, because the AI will have the crews abandoned to repair themselves. So yeah, the base as it starts also has 3 weapon racks that will grant Browning automatic rifles, M9 bazookas, and M1919 LMGs. The LMGs though are tied to the infantry doctrine, so most games, unless you're playing with the infantry doctrine, you can only have bazookas and BARs. BARs obviously give your squads a range punch, a bit more damage. The bazooka is self-explanatory. It's good for taking out vehicles or at least harassing them. And any infantry squad in the US forces can take these weapons once you equip them, which costs about 60 per upgrade. So it's kind of pricey, but it's useful if you keep a squad alive and you get that veterancy rate up. It basically allows the US forces to be very flexible. Their infantry is very flexible and they're good on the move. Their vehicles are generally weaker, but if you can get them out of dodge quick enough, then they can, you can get your crew repaired and they can stay in the field longer. So that's the aim of the game with the US forces: flexible infantry and flexible armor. But I think they're a little weaker, from what I can tell. I think they're generally easier to kill than the new Oberkommando Vest units, but it's surprisingly balanced. Taking them against the Wehrmacht doesn't feel like they have any base advantage over them. In fact, the Wehrmacht can quite easily. I've played against the computer several times now, and the Wehrmacht can be just as effective against the US as they are against the Soviet army. So yeah, I think hats off to Relic. They've done a relatively good balanced job with this one. As far as comp stomp goes, I can't speak for competitive, so if you are a competitive player, you might be tearing your hair out screaming at me, but yeah, as far as comp stomps go, it feels very, very balanced. So yeah, the way you unlock other buildings, as I said earlier, is basically officers. So if I want the next building tier, that will give me access to things like machine gun crews, basic armoured scout vehicles, and the like, I need to unlock the lieutenant. The lieutenant squad on his own costs about 7 or 8 pop cap, but once he's brought to the field, I have access to that. If he dies, it doesn't matter then. You still got access to the buildings, but it's that initial cost. So it's whether you want to just buy him, rush him off, and get him killed, or what. It depends on what kind of play you're going for. Each officer comes with different abilities. The lieutenant is good at basically I think he grants a buff to nearby friendlies. His squad are already armed with BARs, and he gains veterancy with his with friendly units. So if one levels up, he gets it as well. So he can actually rank up incredibly quickly. So it gives you a unit that can be very, very effective. Rather quick. The captain, who's the third building along, his unit comes off the bat with bazookas. Although I haven't quite mastered his unit, his playstyle, I usually buy him late in the match. But he'll be the one that will give you access to your first tank, which will be the M5 Stuart. Gorgeous little tank, 37mm cannon. Weak armor, but it's a good scout tank. Anyone should remember it from Company of Heroes opposing fronts when it was used for the British Army. And the Major, who grants you access to obviously your big guns, which will be your basic M483 Sherman, your M36 Slugger, I believe, and the M8 Scott. The Major is kind of different because he will give you access to a few on-field abilities. You can call in artillery, spotters, but probably the most effective use of the Major is he's not much of a combat unit, but what he's great at is being a retreat point. He can set up anywhere on the map and be your new retreat point, so you don't have to go back to the base, you can just go straight to him, plonk an ambulance near him, you've got a new forward field HQ basically. Again, plays into this kind of aggressive, flexible style of combat that the US forces have. Yeah. The new maps are generally well made. Obviously they have the sort of European, or West European architectural style to it, so you've got maps that are set in places like Holland, Belgium, and I think one or two might be in France. But generally they seem to be going for that late 44, early 45 kind of area of the war. That's nothing that's explicit because there's no campaign, it's just multiplayer maps. So don't buy this if you think if you want a campaign. This is just competitive multiplayer and AI comp stomping. What do the US forces come with as doctrines? Ah yeah, they come with the airborne doctrine, which is very different from the original game's airborne. Units you can see here at the screen there next to my XP is the first one is Pathfinders, who are a unit call-in. They're like a cheap long-range support unit. They're equipped with Garands. I think they have increased sight range. Basically, you use them to set up paratrooper beacons. Then you get a Browning heavy machine gun call-in, where they'll airdrop it. But unlike the original game, they won't airdrop with a crew. The weapon will just hit the ground, and you need somebody to basically get inside or grab that gun. Because if you don't, it's just sat out there and the AI will grab it. And the third one along is paratroopers. Paratroopers work slightly differently now in that you have to be careful you drop them. You can't just decide, oh, I'll drop them near this building or by these trees. You'll get an icon on the ground, and if any of it goes red, it means you will lose infantry on the way down, or members of your squad. It's possible that you can even lose the entire squad if enemy units are nearby, because they'll shoot them as they come down. It's not like the original game. They can upgrade as well. They can have the M1919 and they can have Thompsons. I usually give them Thompsons because they're pretty badass guns. Then you get a M57mm AT gun call-in, same as the Browning. You need that. You need that crude. And the last one is a P47 Thunderbolt Strike, which is meh. It's not that useful. You need to have sight lines and lots of enemy vehicles for it to be really effective. He doesn't strike them, unfortunately. As we can see, we're coming to the end of part 1 here. Part 2, I will explain a bit more about other changes that are going on in part 2 and exactly what kind of units I'm calling in here. Again, more explanation of the kind of units that will be then. So thanks for watching and see you in part 2.